Thomas Marr from PlanetF1.com reporting from the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya at the end of the Spanish Grand Prix, which was won by McLaren's Oscar Piastri, who extends his championship lead over Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc, he was third for Ferrari, fourth was George Russell for Mercedes, fifth Nico Hulkenberg for Sauber. Great result for them. Sixth was Lewis Hamilton for Ferrari, seventh Isaac Hadjar for Racing Bulls. He's getting really used to being in the points. Eighth was Pierre Gasly for Alpine. Ninth, Fernando Alonso, finally getting some points this year for Aston Martin. 10th was Max Verstappen. Now Max, his championship lead, he was down by 25 points coming into this race, and that has basically doubled as a result of what happened today. So, where to even start? Well, McLaren set off on the two-stop strategy. Max had a great start, managed to get ahead of Lando Norris into turn one, or through turn one, settle in behind Piastri, but when Norris came back at him and overtook him, Red Bull went aggressive and they embarked on a three-stop strategy against McLaren's two-stop. Slowly but surely, Max became a threat to McLaren. The strategy was working, but Max did lose a little bit too much time to the McLarens through the middle phase of the race. Despite having pretty great pace, he was able to reduce that gap down to about 7 seconds by the time of his last pit stop. But the problem was that the safety car came out with, I think it was about 14 laps to go. And this safety car absolutely snookered Red Bull, because their options were they could either leave Max out, give him track position over the two McLarens, but he would be on 8-lap-old soft tyres against two McLarens who had considerably fresher soft tyres that had only been used through a qualifying run from yesterday. The problem was he'd used his fresh mediums, he'd used his fresh softs, so the only fresh tyre that Red Bull had left was the hard compound. Now, they put him on the hard tyre, even though the distance after the safety car came in was only something like 7 laps. And this hard tyre really did not work when the action resumed. Max did get on the radio questioning, why have you given me the hard tyres? Obviously going, why? We're close to the end of the race. This is unnecessary. It did leave him a sitting duck, unfortunately. And this was evidenced even by, on the restart, when he powered onto the main straight, the back of the Red Bull was snaking around, and this allowed Charles Leclerc to get by him. The two actually made contact going down the straight as they squeezed each other, and no further action has been taken by the stewards on that particular incident. But Max was clearly, the red mist was setting in, shall we say. And we've seen this before from Max. Sometimes he just, if Max Verstappen has a weakness, and he doesn't have many, if he does have a weakness, it's occasionally that lack of complete discipline and control when things aren't quite going his way. It was exacerbated then by George Russell coming at him and pushing him off, basically, at turn one. George and Max got together through turn one. Max scampered across the escape area, held onto the position, but then had to relinquish the position back to Russell. He did this by releasing the throttle out of turn 4, but then seemed to accelerate again in order to block Russell. And this manoeuvre ended with the two of them colliding. Now, Lando Norris in the cool-down room said, I've done that before in Mario Kart. And Russell himself was not impressed by what Verstappen has done. Verstappen saying something like he wants to bring a box of tissues for George after that. Now, Toto Wolff, he didn't dig in at Max Verstappen. We were down at the media session. We thought Toto might be quite hard on Max for what happened with his driver. But Toto actually decided not to go hard on Max. He said he didn't understand the motivation. He did say it was an incomprehensible move, but he understood the position that Max had been attempting to let George by, and there was some sort of misunderstanding there, which I thought was quite telling, in that if there are discussions going on still between Mercedes and Verstappen, maybe that's why Toto didn't want to go too hard on. Just reading between the lines here on that particular one. But Verstappen was given a 10-second penalty for the collision, and this resulted in him being demoted back to 10th place at the checkered flag. So Yeah, a little bit of an unlucky ending to the race for Verstappen. You can't really, I suppose, excuse what he did if there was any intent behind it. But maybe in terms of seeing how the race got away from him, you can understand the frustration, because the three-stop strategy that he'd been put on did bring him into play. He drove like a man possessed for most of that race. It was something akin to what Michael Schumacher did in Hungary in 1998 or at France in 2004. Basically just pushing the whole way through, just trying to be on fresh tyres the whole way. But when that safety car came out, it was the worst possible timing for Red Bull. It completely cornered them on what they could do. And that pretty much spelled the end then to their race. For McLaren, it was pretty much controlled up at the front. The only real threat to them today was in that three-stop attempt from Verstappen. And it looked briefly as though Verstappen could get on terms. After the last stops, he was only a second behind Lando Norris within DRS range, but traffic then kind of played a part in separating those two a little bit before that safety car came out towards the end. Oscar Piastri, he had it in hand throughout the race, resuming that impressive form we've seen from him over the last little while that took a little bit of a dip through Imola and Monaco, returning to winning ways to extend his championship lead over Lando Norris, who nevertheless will be pretty pleased with his weekend's work. The gap not particularly big between the two of them. Charles Leclerc, he always looked a threat to that final podium place, and he managed to come through to take that place after Verstappen had that wiggle coming out of the last corner. George Russell, he finished fourth. Not a great day for Mercedes in the other car. Kimi Antonelli, one of the retirements, as he encountered an engine issue on his car. We have to talk about Franco Colapinto as well. He was given 5 races to impress. In theory, 5 races to impress. And at this point, it's not really working for him, is it? He very much mired in the lower midfield throughout this weekend, and just reading his body language, the way he's speaking to us in the press pen at the end of the day, he's a very downbeat character. And Flavio Briatore has said he'll be given all the time he needs to find his feet. But considering they ditched or swapped the positions for Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto, Franco at the moment not really justifying that switch. And would it be out of the realms of possibility to see them swap back at some point? I don't think it would be. Doohan was starting to show signs of improvement relative to Gasly. And Gasly, of course, finished in the points today. I don't think it'd be completely out of the question to see Doohan back in that Alpine at some point, or Paul Aaron, if Colapinto doesn't manage to find some pace sometime soon. Nico Hulkenberg, 5th for Sauber. Their upgrade's clearly working. We spoke to Jonathan Wheatley after the race, and the smiles down at Sauber. The car, he said, we have a race car for the first time in a long time. And it's clear that it has made a difference. These upgrades have brought performance to the car. And it's really a great step for Sauber ahead of Audi taking over the entry later in the year. And of course, next year, it turns into Audi completely. That's pretty much it from us here in Spain. It's been one hell of a triple header. I'm absolutely exhausted. Flying home to Ireland tonight. But join us on planetf1.com throughout the week for all the reaction from everything that's happened here over the weekend. A lot to dissect, I think. And I think we'll be hearing a lot more about Verstappen and the entire fuss that went on there towards the end of the race. So stay tuned to us, planetf1.com, and of course on social media.